Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Some people are still trickling in, but we'll go ahead and begin. So hello all, my name is Mimi Mudd, and I want to welcome you to our fourth webinar in the summer 2023 Family Webinar Series. I am the Assistant Director for Parent and Family Programs, and tonight I'm joined by my colleague from Student Financial Services, Andrea Stewart-Douglas, who's the Associate Director for Student and Family Engagement. We're excited to have you join us tonight about our conversation for Student Financial Services. Before we get started, we want to just review some housekeeping items. So first, we want to make sure you know how to submit questions during this webinar. You will notice that we've given you the ability to ask questions via the Q&A feature in Zoom. Our professional staff within Student Transitions and Family Programs is going to help field those questions that you submit tonight. So to make sure you know how to use the Q&A feature, please share the place from which you're watching, and then we'll name a few of them on air. Second, we are showing a PowerPoint created by our panelists during tonight's webinar, as you can see. If you prefer to download this PowerPoint and follow along on your own, we will be sharing a link to the PowerPoint in the chat. As a note, in the chat feature, we'll also be sharing other applicable links throughout the webinar just to help you follow along and learn more information. Third, this webinar is being recorded live. Next week, it will be uploaded to our families.wsel.edu website. And in a moment, we'll hear from our panelist, Andrea, about Student Financial Services. If something she says sparks a question, don't forget to send it to us using the Q&A feature. Then after the presentation, we'll move into the question and answer portion of the evening. But before passing things along to our panelists, we are going to go ahead and share some of those places from which you're joining us tonight. We have families tuning in from Dallas, Texas, Naples, Florida, and Columbus, Ohio. Great. Now, since I know you all want to hear more about Student Financial Services, I will turn it over to Andrea.
Thanks, Mimi. All right. Well, thank you all for taking time out of your evening to join us tonight to learn more about Student Financial Services and the ways that we support your students. I think we'll get started with just giving you all a little bit of more background about our department and some of the ways, again, that we support students. So in Student Financial Services, our primary function is to award undergraduate students with financial aid, and that financial aid can be in the form of federal aid as well as institutional scholarships and grants. On average, we award about $135 million each year. Our office is staffed with 6 full-time financial aid counselors, which does include myself. We assign our counselors to students. So you may be working with someone who you're familiar with, who probably assisted you throughout the application process. More than likely, this is the same individual that your student has been assigned to and will continue to work with over the next 4 years. The approach that we follow in SFS at WashU is one that I like to call highly personalized. Our approach there is so that we can really get to know students by name and story. One of the benefits of working with students so closely during the application process is that we get to know the student, we get to know their families, we get to know really if there are certain challenges that a family may be experiencing. And it's really good so that the student and family don't always have to repeat or start over with a new staff member in our office. It's really a great way for us to build trust with families and students. And so the more they trust us, the more that they'll communicate if there are things that are impacting their ability to pay, which allows us as counselors to be able to provide solutions to help them with their challenges along the way. One of the other things that we offer to support our students and families in helping to pay for the education here at WashU is through 2 ways. The first way is the Partners in Education with Parents that we affectionately call PEP. And the other way is through an installment payment plan. And we'll share a little bit more information about that in a second. Lastly, the other way that we provide students support outside of providing financial aid is through giving them some supports in the area of federal work study. Our office administers the federal work study program here at the Danforth and the medical school campuses. But in addition to providing students with funding for federal work study, we serve as a really good resource for students who might be having some challenges locating a position because of the fact that we have strong relationships with our campus employers. Oftentimes they'll reach out to us if they're looking for a student or if they're about to post a new position on the website. We'll oftentimes hear about that information first, and we'll have a student in mind who might have already talked with us about, trying to find a position. And it's really a great way for us to, sort of give students a heads up about an opportunity. The other thing that we help students a lot with is we help them understand how to understand, interpret, and read their billing statement as well as their student account. There's a lot of activity that happens throughout the year within a student's account, especially if there's transactional activity because of bear bucks they may be adding to their account, or perhaps there's a charge that's on there because they may have locked themselves out of their dorm. So there's a multitude of different ways that there could be a special charge here and there. But our job here is to make sure that students are aware of these things, that they're not really surprised by that by the time the monthly bill is created. And we will sit down with them one-on-one and walk them through the activity in their account so that they better understand what's going on. And certainly we can help them understand and interpret their bill, the monthly bill that would come. The other thing that we're really excited about is a new service that we're providing through a financial wellness platform called iGrad. iGrad was a platform that we purchased last year. And it has been a wonderful tool that many of our students have taken advantage of. It's great in that it's really a helpful tool to help students learn how to budget, to learn things about banking. There are courses, there are tools, there are, different ways for students to understand through videos, interactive activities on these topics, which is many people know, it's sometimes challenging for students who are leaving home for the first time to know how to, budget and, develop a spending plan and monitor and watch out for things that they're, not used to doing. But we understand making that transition can be challenging and for them to get used to and comfortable with doing those things. So our office serves as a resource for helping them do that. And this platform, again, is a wonderful tool to, teach them how to become better money managers. The other thing too is the one-on-one assistance that we're providing with students in that way. We do provide workshops occasionally for students, but our counselors are always here to provide one-on-one assistance. We find that one-on-one assistance is particularly helpful for students who are considering moving off campus. And for the first time, these may be students who are, renting an apartment for the first time, or, going to, an off-campus apartment that the university may provide. But again, it's just sort of stretching them in terms of, making sure that they're following budgets, making sure they understand their revenue, income, and expenses that they're now going to be responsible for paying month to month. And there are times when students need a little bit more guidance from us, and we're very happy as counselors to sit down and walk them through that information to make sure that they don't get themselves into, a bind later on. So those are just some of the things that we do in student financial services that I thought would be very important for us to share tonight. So the really important portal that students probably have access by now is WebStack. WebStack is the portal that is actually managed by our Student Accounting and Billing Office. This is where students can go in at any time and they can view and they can also pay their bill. So this is where they can view the student account on a day-to-day basis. They can also pull out their semester and their monthly billing statements. Now, if students want to have you as parent or family member have access to this information and pay the bill, they will need to go out and add an other payer using WebStack to allow, again, another individual to view and pay the bill as a guest. So that is something that students will need to actively do. This is also where students will sign up for direct deposits if they want to receive their refunds and disbursements quickly. Students can always get a check, but we encourage students to set themselves up for electronic deposits. That way they get their funds in a much more timely way. WebStack is the place that they would go to get signed up for that. This is also where students will sign up for Bear Bucks, and they would add on these additional bucks to their campus card. And so the Bear Bucks can be used to, make purchases around the university. They can be used to purchase additional snacks at the campus store or some of the vendors that are on campus that serve food. They can use this at different vending machines. They can use this at places where they can, use the laundry facility. So there's, multiple uses for the Bear Bucks card. And I do believe that the maximum that students can add on Bear Bucks is $1,000 per semester. That is atypical. Most students don't add that much in Bear Bucks, but this is another way for students to be able to get some financial resources to be able to help get them through their day-to-day. And then WebStack is also the place where there would be some updating to some of their personal information as well. So CashNet is the place where you, as the authorized person or guest, once you've been given access by your student, CashNet is the portal that you would have access to. So this is where you would go to be able to view the billing statement, you view transactions, you would pay the balance that's due. And this is also where you'd go to sign up for the installment payment plan. Just a little bit more about the billing process. As many of you are aware, we just released our fall semester's bill that was released on July 3rd. And the balance that's due it's August 20th. We also follow a similar timeline for our spring bill. So that will be released on December 1st, and the balance will be due on January 20th next year. For any unpaid balances that exist at the end of each month, there will be a 2% late fee assessed on that unpaid balance. So if you're unable to pay those balances by those deemed dates, please know that there will be late fees charged for each month as long as that balance exists. Some of the other things I'd like to mention in terms of billing is that I mentioned the monthly statement, and this is also where students can see the additional transactions outside of the tuition, the fees, some of the normal things that would show up in a bill. This is where students will also see some of those other transactions that I mentioned before. And so have your student make sure that they check their student account pretty frequently, but the monthly statement would also show there that type of activity. The statement is also going to show, as well as their student account, the student health insurance premium that was also included in the fall statement, the fall bill. This year, that premium is $2,500. And if a student does have private insurance, it's possible that that bill can be, or that charge can be waived. So what they'd want to do is to go to WebStack and go to the student health section that will allow them to submit a waiver request. And there are a few questions that would need to be answered by the student. If that waiver request is approved, then Habit will remove that charge from the student's account from their bill. However, if that waiver is not approved and it's denied, then we would encourage students who are what we would call our lower income students. We would encourage them to reach out to their student financial services counselor because there may be a way for us to provide them with a grant to cover that charge. Either way, we want students to make sure that they go out and at least make an attempt to see if they can request the waiver and get that approved. And the deadline for doing that is September 5th. And I will also say that it is a hard deadline. Please have your students, request the waiver by September 5th. Habit has a very strict deadline. If it's beyond that date, I'm afraid it's going to be really, really challenging, if not impossible, to get an extension on that. And the last thing I'll mention is that parents will receive the monthly billing statement, as I've already stated before, is that students giving their parents or other relatives access to that information. They'll also be receiving a billing statement. So one other thing I wanted to mention is that the university does not accept credit card payments. We sometimes get this question in our office. So I just wanted to make a point to say that we do not, as it's a philosophical reason. We don't want students and families getting into credit card debt, consumer debt, to pay their tuition and other expenses. So we do not accept those credit card payments. We also have an option called the installment payment plan. And this is an opportunity for families to sign up to have the semester balance that's due spread over 5 monthly payments. So if you sign up for this program, there's a $40 per semester fee for enrolling in the program, but you can take the balance due that's currently due, spread that over 5 payments. And many families take advantage of this payment option because it does sort of help, spread things out, and it's a lot more palatable for family budgets to be able to do that. And so the re-enrollment for that would also need to take place for the spring semester. So there would be another $40 fee that you would need to pay to enroll for the spring semester. But again, it's a very popular feature that many families take advantage of. And then another option is through the PEP program that I mentioned earlier. There are multiple options available to families depending upon what your financial situation is. We have families that will take out a multi-year loan, meaning that they will take out a loan to cover 4 years worth of charges. That charge could be tuition only, that charge could be housing only, or it could be the combination of both. But that option exists for families who want to, take advantage of being able to have access to those funds for all 4 years. There's a prepay option if families have saved, they have some resources available, perhaps in a 529 plan. You can also basically park that money with the university, and we will set up a shadow account for you that will allow you to take advantage of a freezing benefit that also exists for the multi-year if you are taking advantage and doing the multi-year loan. The benefit there is that if you take all of that up front, you will be guaranteed to receive a freezing of the first year rate, the first year tuition. So let's say you're a student, you take advantage of getting that now for all 4 years. When tuition increases over the 4-year period that your student is here, and you take out a loan that's 100%, the equivalent of 100% of tuition, your rate is 100%. And so when those tuition rates increase over the next 4 years, you're assured of being locked in 100%, basically shielding yourself from those tuition increases. So your rate is basically going to stay the same over the 4-year period. There's also an annual option that allows families to decide if they want to take out a loan year to year. So there could be a situation where a family wants to take out a loan in year 1, year 2, they decide not to, but year 3 and 4, they decide that they may want to go ahead and take the loan. So there's a lot more flexibility with that option. So each year you can evaluate if you want to take a loan. And then the combination allows you to be able to do a prepay, plus take out a loan. And so again, that's a situation for a family who has resources. They may not have all of the resources available to pay all of the cost, but they can put some money up front and then borrow the rest. So there's, again, some flexibility, again, depending upon your family situation. And our counselors are very happy to work with you all to figure out what scenario or what payment option works best for you. And then lastly, the federal PLUS loan. The Parent PLUS loan is also available for families who may want to borrow from the federal government. With the parent loans that I just mentioned through PEP, those are funds that are being borrowed from the university. So these are the university's own dollars that we're lending out to our families. But with the federal PLUS loan, those are funds that are coming directly from the Department of Education. And there's some families that, decide that they want to go that route. And we understand that perhaps it's a better fit for them to go the route of the Federal Plus loan. So those are the options that all of this information can be found on our website at financialaid.woosto.edu. And again, we're happy to walk you through all of these different scenarios. We have actually a nice spreadsheet that we put together that shows you if you borrow this or you decide to go this option, we can tell you what your monthly payments would be. We can, give you the information that can help you make a very informed decision on what's best for your family. So a little bit about federal work study. For students who have been assigned federal work study, the process that we really want to emphasize over the summer is if a student is very serious about working as soon as they come to the university in the fall, we want them to make sure that they bring their original I-9 documents with them. When students are working a federal work study job, it's just like any other job in the university. They're an employee of the university. And just like myself and others who work here, when we came on board within the first 3 days, we had to present documentation that verified our identity, that showed that we were citizens or eligible to work in the US. And those had to be original documents. So what we want students to know is that if they intend on working throughout the year, that they may want to make sure that they bring those documents with them to the university. And be prepared ahead of time. Otherwise, it's kind of a hassle to, call back home and say, Mom and Dad, can you mail this stuff to me or overnight this information to me? It's a good idea to bring it with you. That way you're, ready. You don't necessarily have to work in your first semester. If you choose to maybe wait as a student and maybe start in the spring semester, that's fine too. But we just don't want there to be any delays in you getting ready to be prepared to work. The Handshake platform is the platform that the Career Center has set up. And this is where students can find jobs, federal work study, as well as non-work study jobs. And the I-9 documentation, again, that applies to work study as well as non-work study jobs. Students who are not receiving federal work study can still find employment. And so Handshake is the platform that you'd want to go set up an account, make sure that you're going through all of the job openings that exist. And if you find something that you're interested in, we encourage you to reach out to the employers. There's contact information that's in each job description. Reach out to the employer, express interest in that particular position. It's up to them to decide if they want to hire you, essentially, but I can tell you there's really, employers are very eager to hire students. There's really not very many things that I've seen where students have been denied employment. So it's very likely that you'll be able to find employment with the position and an area that you're interested in. We also encourage students to make sure if they are chosen or selected for a position to reach out to their employers the first week of classes, again, just to solidify that they will be working there and make the employer know that, yes, the student is serious about coming and working at that particular department. And again, yeah, they're going to be in the driver's seat to determine who. But again, as far as we're concerned, we will be that resource for students to help them, find different job openings if they're struggling to do that. We know the contacts, we have the resources, we know the departments that we can reach out to. And if you want to, follow the process and know a little bit more about this area, I encourage you to go to our website again at financialaid.woosto.edu. You'd want to click on the How Aid Works section. Next, you'd go to the type of aid, federal work study, and then there's a lot of information on student employment. That's also where you'll find the list of the original I-9 documentation that employers will need for students to present. And as I've mentioned before, there are many job opportunities that are there, non-work study as well as work study job opportunities available to students. One other thing that we also want to make sure students are aware of, it has to do with outside awards. Now is the time that a lot of students are beginning to hear back from scholarships that they applied to probably within the last year. And one thing we also want to always encourage students to do is to continue to apply for scholarships. The reason why is because we don't penalize students for bringing or winning outside scholarships. We don't automatically reduce any scholarship that we've provided. So that's why we really want encourage students to do that, because we're not going to reduce our scholarship automatically. The only time that our scholarship gets reduced is if we are trying to make sure that the outside scholarship fits within the student's award. So we'll provide them with our financial aid, our scholarship. If they bring in outside scholarship money, that's great. But the combination of those two things cannot exceed the cost of attendance. So as long as students have what we call the open contribution, students will apply for outside scholarships that they can then use to help meet their contribution, their part of it. They can knock themselves out and just go crazy getting those scholarship opportunities coming in. And we will gladly take and accept those and put those in their award. But again, the maximum, the ceiling is upward to the cost of attendance for each year. And so we just want to make sure that students are aware of that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. And then I just wanted to remind you all of our commitment. We meet 100% of demonstrated need for all of our admitted students. That is for our domestic, our international, our DACA students, and undocumented. So we will continue to meet 100% of demonstrated need. And for students who are coming from households where the family income is $75,000 or less, we will provide a no loan package for students in those households. And that essentially means that students will be awarded with grants, scholarship, and federal work study, no federal loans. And if there are changes in your circumstances over the course of this next year, or even the full 4 years that your student attends this university, we really want them to reach out to our office and let us know. Changes that we often see are things like job loss. Perhaps there is an unexpected medical crisis that creates medical bills that the family did not expect to have to pay when their student entered the university. So anything that is going to impact the family's ability to pay their college expenses, we really want to know about that, because oftentimes we as counselors will be able to go in and take those things into consideration and be able to make the appropriate adjustments to help students qualify for more financial assistance. So again, that kind of goes back to where I started with making sure that we're developing the relationships with our students and families, building the trust, so that when things do come up, especially in emergency situations, we really want everyone to communicate those things with us, because our job is really here to help bring students to the university, but also help them stay here at the university. Okay, and then lastly, questions about the award or bill at any time, feel free to reach out to your student financial services counselor. If you want to have a discussion again with your counselor about payment options, financing options, they are the best person to speak to. And we have various ways that we meet and communicate with families. We do office visits. We talk with folks over the phone. The Zoom is by far our most popular way that we meet with students and families today. You do not need to set an appointment to come in. We are here every single day. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 in the morning till 5 p.m. Central Time. And then this is a list of our counseling team. I'm not on there, but this is our counseling team, and we're divided up by the alpha, the first letter of the student's last name. These are the counselor's direct phone numbers, and this is how you can also reach them by email. General contact information. And that's that.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. I'm going to just pause here in case people want to take a screenshot of this slide. So I'll just leave it up for another second or two.
Sure.
So thank you so much for all that information. I have a question to kind of kick off the question and answer portion of the evening, and just a reminder to our students, parents, families attending right now to go ahead and submit your questions via the Q&A feature in Zoom as well. So a question just to kind of kick us off is, how can students give their families access to view and or pay their billing statement? Just one more time to make sure everybody's aware.
Oh, so students would need to go to WebStack and yeah, so they'd have to go to WebStack under the billing. I can't remember the exact area or the name of the section within the portal, but if you go under the billing, and then you would need to set up guests or set up special access. That would be where you'd want to go and get that individual set up. So start with WebStack.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with some of our questions that were pre-submitted via registration, and I see some rolling in via the Q&A feature as well. So one of the questions we have is about the university's refund process. The example the parent or family member gave is, if a student and their family has paid a fee before scholarship or aid had been applied, what happens next? Is the university able to refund, or what are the next steps?
Yes, so that student would have a credit show up on their statement, and we would refund that dollar amount to the student. Now, parents can reach out to student billing, and if they want to keep that credit on the student's account so that that then gets applied at the next billing cycle, that's also possible. But if not, we would issue a refund. Now, the refund would go to the student. And again, if that's something that you would not want to have happen, you'd need to reach out to student accounting and make arrangements to have that sent to you directly. But yeah, refunds would get processed.
Okay. We did have a question earlier too about if they had submitted the health insurance waiver. And so I just kind of wanted to recall what you said earlier, that HABIF will handle, if it is approved, if that
Right.
waiver of health insurance is approved by HABIF will then remove that.
That's correct.
Charge that fee.
Yep, that's correct.
So when is the student balance due for students or families which have enrolled in the payment plans? So kind of, is there like a set day of the month, or is that just dependent?
Yeah, so have a little cheat sheet here. So if you enroll by July 25th, your first payment due will be August 1st. And so it's if you enroll by August 25th, then the first payment due would be September 1st. If you enroll by September 25th, the first payment would be due October 1st. And then the last opportunity would be enrolling by October 25th. And so then you'd be making a November 1st and December 1st payment for the semester. And it's basically a similar cycle for the spring semester.
Thank you. And then kind of staying on this trend of payment plan questions, we did have a family member ask in the pre-submitted questions about a situation in which, if they're sourcing some of the tuition from a 529 as well as cash and loans, can they also have a payment plan? And do they coordinate that in the same way, if so?
So they would be able to enroll in the payment plan for the balance that would be due. So student accounting would apply the 529 payment first, and then whatever other funds or whatever other financing would also get applied to the account. They would do that then. And so whatever's left over, that would be the amount that you'd want to enroll in the installment payment plan, and then spread that out over the 5-month period.
Thank you. Okay, so now we had some pre-submitted questions I'll kind of put under how to make a payment as the main topic. So we had a parent or family member ask about whether they can pay tuition via a bank transfer rather than mailing a check.
Yes, if you visit the, it's technically called Financial Services website, but it's still student billing. They have instructions on their website on how to make an electronic funds transfer. So you could follow those instructions. I would still reach out to the office to make sure that they've received the electronic funds transfers, because you can about imagine that they're getting transfers all the time. But you want to make sure that they have received it and that it gets appropriately applied to your student's account. So I would definitely reach out to their office. Email is probably the best way to do that, and at least you have a paper trail.
And then the next question about making a payment was whether the student financial services or financial aid accepts in-person payments. So if they were here for move-in day, are they allowed to do an in-person payment?
Yes, we have, and I didn't mention this at the start, we have a service center, and that's one of their primary roles. So when you come into our office, you'll be greeted by a staff of 3 customer service reps. And these are individuals that are there to collect payments. And so we can take a check payment, or you can bring cash. And so we're still handling cash. So those are the 2 options that we would gladly accept and process for you.
Okay, now kind of switching gears. So we did have a student pre-submit a question asking about a balance that they're seeing in their account right now. So they believe that they have received a full ride through Quest Bridge. What could be the reason why they have a balance in their account?
That balance is likely due to the student health insurance charge. And since I am the Quest Bridge counselor, I would love for that student to reach out to me directly. Like I said, you can email, set up a Zoom, because then what I'd like to do is go into the account, and then I can see what I can do about giving them a grant to cover that amount. But I'm pretty sure that that's what that is.
Okay, then we got a question kind of about the FAFSA and then also CSS. So the question is whether the FAFSA form needs to be submitted annually. And then the same question for the CSS form.
Yes, thanks for the question. Yes, both forms will need to be submitted every single year.
And is there a set date for those to happen every year, or does that change?
So typically we have actually 2 rounds of submission for our forms. We have what we call our early renewal, and we ask for students to submit their aid applications by the end of December so that they can get notified by the end of January of what their new award will be for the upcoming school year. However, because the FAFSA is being delayed this year, we probably won't be able to do any early rounds. So most students, in fact, all students will have to basically submit their things in the standard or normal round, which means that both the CSS and the FAFSA would need to be submitted by mid-March. And if submitted by mid-March, we'll be able to provide them with their award renewal around the first part of May.
We had another pre-submitted question about, expected family contribution. So if a student is awarded a scholarship or works part-time, how could this affect the expected family contribution? If there is kind of like a general answer for that.
Sure. Okay, so with the expected family contribution, that's what an outside scholarship could cover essentially. So with an outside scholarship, as an example, let's say the family's contribution is $5,000. Well, if a student wins an outside scholarship for $5,000, that essentially covers their contribution. And so what we'll do is take the $5,000, add that into their financial aid award, and then that flows over to their bill. And so that credit takes care of the amount that the family would have been required to contribute. The outside scholarship is taking care of that. Now, with respect to the federal work study, because the federal work study is earned money, it's not money that the student would automatically receive a credit for. Students will only receive federal work study dollars if they earn it through a paycheck. However, students who are kind of savvy, they say, I don't necessarily want to work a work study job, so I'm going to go after an outside scholarship to cover that amount. So students are awarded $2,500 for federal work study. And a lot of students go after scholarships to win $2,500 worth of an outside scholarship. If that happens, again, we'll take the $2,500 added to their award. That shows up as a credit on their account. And they've essentially, covered some of their expense. They may also receive a refund depending upon what's going on with their balance. The long story here is that they essentially can use an outside scholarship to replace the federal work study dollars that they would have had to work in order to receive. And so again, savvy students have figured that out, and they're, again, pursuing those outside scholarships so that they can not necessarily work and use some of that time to study.
Thank you. And then our next pre-submitted question is about, or I guess submitted this evening, criteria and process for a student to apply for that first year technology grant.
So students don't have to apply for the first year technology grant. Students would have been notified about that via their financial assistance offer. There would have been on page 3 information about that, but let's just say you didn't see it, or maybe something happened. Any student that is receiving WashU scholarship, WashU need-based scholarship, is eligible for the technology grant. So you don't necessarily have to be a student who's QuestBridge or, WashU Pledge eligible. As long as you're receiving $1 or more of WashU need-based scholarship, then you are eligible for the technology grant. And we are working on, as today and tomorrow, we're going to be working on sending out email communications to all of the students who are eligible, and reminding them about this, and just sharing more details around how they go about making the purchase so that they can purchase their laptops and make sure that they're aware of how that works. It will be available to them when they arrive on campus in August.
Great, thank you. So staying on kind of this scholarship-based question train, does the university have scholarship students can apply for after they've been accepted to WashU?
Unfortunately, no, and it really pains me to say that. Our merit scholarship opportunities are awarded in a student's first year. And so if a student did not receive a merit scholarship opportunity, then unfortunately that really would have been the only time that they could have gotten that.
And then is there kind of a main hub or place that parents and families can go to learn about what scholarships are offered for things outside of tuition, like housing, books, food, etc., if applicable?
Well, there aren't any scholarships within the university, but students can use that iGrad platform that I mentioned earlier. They have a wonderful scholarship tool where there's over 2,000 scholarship opportunities that they advertise that students can apply for. And so that was, again, one of the reasons why we purchased the platform, because we know that students are always looking for great resources for outside scholarships. And that's when it's pretty legit. I would really encourage all of our students to check that out if they're still looking for opportunities.
Thank you. Okay, then we have a question about the PEP loans. Can a student decide to go with a PEP loan at any time during the time at WashU, or must this decision be made within their first year?
So I do want to clarify that the PEP loan is a parent loan. So students are not eligible to take out any of those loans. This is all parental. And if a family decides that they don't want to, take out a loan in the first year, that's perfectly fine. They can, take out a loan anytime that the student is matriculating. So that could be sophomore year, junior year, senior year. So anytime over the 4 years.
And then can you just kind of clarify or confirm whether if a parent is using the PEP loan, if they're able to enroll in an installment plan as well?
Yes, you can do both.
Great, thank you. So then we had some work study questions come in. And this might be more applicable for like career services or checking out on Handshake. But do you happen to know in general how much a student can make per hour through work study, or is it dependent on the specific job?
It depends on the job. That's as far as I'd like to go with that.
Yes, definitely. And I would just recommend
Yeah.
students interested in work study to go to Handshake, and it will be listed what the per hour rate is
Yes.
for each job as well. So definitely
That's right.
very transparent about that upfront. Okay. And then we have a question about tuition increases, which I know you kind of mentioned earlier, but just the question is, does WashU tuition increase each year? And I know there was kind of a caveat you gave about that earlier.
Yeah, generally speaking, it does. And on average, the total cost, tuition and other things will generally go up around 3.5%, sometimes closer to 4%. But yeah, it's gonna go up.
Okay, and then I'm seeing some questions about health insurance specifically, which I know are kind of asking about the health insurance waiver and the health insurance fee. I'd recommend going to Habit's website. They'll have a link to that health insurance waiver, and then also information about the health insurance fee for this coming academic year as well listed there.
Yes.
Okay. Those may be, let me just kind of double check the questions we had that came in. Oh, we did have a question about student financial services counselors. Does every single student at WashU get assigned one, or just those receiving financial aid?
Every student that's admitted receives an assigned counselor. So yeah, I mean, that's part of the personalized approach. We want students to know who they can contact should circumstances change and they do want to apply for financial assistance at some point.
And then a question about summer classes or financial aid that I missed earlier. Can students receive financial aid for summer classes, or is it just applicable for fall and spring?
We do provide financial aid for summer. However, it does come in the form of a student loan. So the merit scholarships and need-based scholarships that students might have received in the fall and spring semester, they're not provided in the summer. A Pell Grant eligible student would likely receive a summer Pell, as we call it. But yeah, generally it's a student loan. Federal loan that students provide, that we're providing rather.
Great, and then looks like we have about 3 more questions. Okay. So if a parent or family member or student is on a payment plan, do late fees still get charged to them?
No.
Okay. And then do students and families have options if there's a financial emergency, whether that is changing their need, as you stated earlier, or are there specific grants or maybe like scholarships or anything like that for families facing financial emergencies?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I love about my team. We're very responsive to emergency situations, changes that happen. So the best thing that I would encourage a student and parent to do is to reach out to their counselor, start the conversation and just share, what's going on. We might probe and ask questions. It's not that we're trying to pry. We just really want to make sure that we're getting all the relevant information, because we're just trying to do our best to make sure that we can make all the appropriate adjustments that we can to help.
Great. Okay, we have one last question for the evening. Andrea, thank you so much for all the information you shared tonight and for answering all those questions. So last question, what tip do you have for parents and families as they start to have, or maybe continue to have, difficult conversations with their students about financial matters?
Wow. I think transparency is very important. I know that there are a lot of families that don't necessarily want to share the details of what's going on with their financial situation, especially if there are challenges happening. And I certainly wouldn't want them to do anything that they're really not comfortable with. But I do think it's important that there is a transparent conversation as much as that can be had, so that students are not in the dark about the situation, because it may require them to need to reach out to our office. As I stated before, we not only want to bring students in, recruit and bring them in, but we want to make sure that they stay. And so the more students are knowledgeable about the real situation that's happening at home financially, I think that equips them, and that helps to empower them to be able to have conversations with us about the situation. And we can also maybe help navigate some difficult conversations with families. I've done it a lot. Students have come in sharing, they may be a bit intimidated or not really sure how to get it started. And I've kind of helped to mediate some of those discussions with families. So my best advice is just to, share, be as transparent as you possibly can with your students, but help them be knowledgeable, because the more that they experience and know what's happening financially, it's going to equip them to be better money managers when they leave the institution and they're out on their own. So sorry to be so long-winded with that, but that's my best advice.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that advice. I think that's definitely very applicable. And again, thank you for all the information you provided this evening. I'm confident families of WashU and students, if they joined us, learned a lot from your presentation tonight. Families and students, just a reminder that you can find a recording of this webinar on our families@wusl.edu webpage sometime next week. And stay tuned for our next webinar, a conversation about navigating common challenges, transitioning to college, which is going to be next or in 2 Tuesdays, Tuesday, July 25th at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. We will see you all then. And thank you again. Have a good evening. Bye.